The idea of Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States is one of those discussions that occasionally emerges, usually dismissed as unrealistic or politically impossible. However, a recent statement by the U.S. Commerce Secretary has reignited this debate, arguing that full political integration between Canada and the United States is the most effective way to deepen economic ties. This statement has sparked widespread discussion, raising questions about trade, sovereignty, and what such a merger could mean for both countries. In today's video, we take an in-depth look at this controversial proposal, breaking down the economic arguments, historical context, political implications, and public reactions to assess whether such a move is even possible or desirable. A look at economic integration. Between Canada and the U.S. Canada and the United States share one of the largest trading relationships in the world. The economic ties between the two countries have been strengthened by trade agreements such as the 1989 Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement, which was later expanded into NAFTA in 1994. NAFTA played a significant role in shaping North American trade by eliminating tariffs on most goods exchanged between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. More recently, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, implemented in 2020, updated and modernized NAFTA to include new provisions on digital trade, labor rights, and environmental protections. These agreements have already created a deeply integrated market between Canada and the U.S., raising the question, if trade relations are so strong, why consider political union as the next step? One argument in favor of making Canada a U.S. state is that it would eliminate remaining trade barriers and regulatory inconsistencies that still exist despite decades of economic cooperation. A unified political and economic system would mean a single regulatory framework, reducing bureaucratic obstacles for businesses operating across the border. Additionally, a single currency and banking system would eliminate exchange rate fluctuations, benefiting businesses and consumers alike. The argument, as laid out by the Commerce Secretary, is that political integration would take the benefits of economic collaboration to the next level, allowing for greater efficiency and competitiveness on a global scale. Historical perspective on Canada-US relations. The idea of Canada joining the United States is not new. Historically, there were moments when such a union seemed plausible. During the American Revolution, some believed that the British colonies in present-day Canada might join the 13 colonies in rebellion against Britain. However, Canada remained loyal to the British Crown. Later, in the 19th century, as the U.S. expanded westward, there were calls from some American politicians to annex Canada. The concept gained traction again in the mid-20th century, particularly during times of close military and economic cooperation. Yet Canada has maintained its sovereignty, developing its own identity separate from its southern neighbor. Even today, the two countries remain deeply interconnected. They share the longest undefended border in the world, extensive security cooperation, and a cultural overlap in many areas, from entertainment to lifestyle. Yet, Canada has maintained distinct policies on healthcare, gun control and social welfare, reflecting its own political and cultural priorities. Political and sovereignty considerations. One of the biggest obstacles to the idea of Canada becoming a U.S. state is the question of sovereignty. Canadians take great pride in their independence, and any suggestion that they should relinquish their nationhood is met with resistance. Canada's political system is distinct from the United States, functioning as a parliamentary democracy with a constitutional monarchy. The British monarch remains the symbolic head of state, a tradition deeply embedded in Canada's history. The Canadian government has made it clear that sovereignty is not up for negotiation. Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney, for example, has firmly rejected the notion that Canada should become part of the United States, emphasizing that the country's autonomy is essential to its national identity. Provincial leaders have echoed this sentiment, reinforcing that Canada's political system, healthcare model, and social policies are fundamentally different from those of the U.S. and should remain so. The idea of merging the two nations under a single political entity would likely face overwhelming opposition from both the Canadian public and its leadership. Public sentiment in Canada toward the idea of becoming a U.S. state is overwhelmingly negative. While economic integration is widely supported, political integration is a different matter. Polls consistently show that Canadians value their independence and are wary of adopting the American system of governance. Issues such as gun laws, healthcare, and social policies are areas where Canada has deliberately chosen a different path from the U.S. For example, Canada's universal healthcare system is a point of national pride, providing medical services to all citizens regardless of income. In contrast, the U.S. system is more privatized and market-driven, with millions of Americans lacking health insurance. This fundamental difference alone makes the idea of integration unappealing to many Canadians. From the American perspective, the idea of absorbing Canada into the U.S. is also not a top priority. While economic ties are strong, the idea of adding a new state with its own distinct political and economic characteristics would come with complexities. The U.S. political landscape is already deeply divided, and incorporating a new state with a different political culture could create additional challenges. From an economic standpoint, there are both advantages and disadvantages to Canada becoming a U.S. state. On the positive side, full integration could lead to increased economic growth by eliminating trade barriers and regulatory inconsistencies. Businesses operating across the border would no longer have to deal with two different tax systems, labor laws, or import restrictions. This could boost investment, job creation, and overall economic efficiency. However, there are significant downsides to consider. The transition costs of merging two distinct political and economic systems would be enormous. Everything from currency conversion to legal integration would require extensive planning and negotiation. There would also be major policy conflicts, particularly in areas like healthcare, gun laws, and environmental regulations. Furthermore, Canada's provinces operate with a high degree of autonomy, and integrating them into the U.S. federal system would require constitutional changes that could take years to implement. Alternative paths to economic integration. Rather than full political integration, there are other ways to deepen economic ties between Canada and the U.S. strengthening trade agreements, reducing regulatory barriers, and enhancing cross-border cooperation can achieve many of the same benefits without requiring political union. Initiatives such as joint infrastructure projects, energy partnerships, and coordinated technology policies can further integrate the two economies while maintaining national sovereignty. Additionally, sector-specific collaborations could be expanded. For example, Canada and the U.S. already have strong cooperation in the automotive and energy industries. Further alignment in sectors like artificial intelligence, clean energy, and supply chain logistics could create even more economic benefits without requiring political absorption. The idea of Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States may be an interesting thought experiment, but in reality, it faces enormous political, economic, and cultural obstacles. While economic integration between the two countries continues to deepen, full political union is neither necessary nor desirable for most Canadians. The recent statement from the U.S. Commerce Secretary may have sparked a new debate, but the practical challenges and public opposition make it unlikely to become a reality. Instead, strengthening economic cooperation while respecting national sovereignty remains the best path forward. What do you think? Would Canada benefit from becoming part of the United States, or is it better off remaining independent while maintaining close economic ties? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Finlytics for more deep dives into global economic issues.